Hey Internet, welcome to Worldview Everlasting, your favorite YouTube addiction.
This episode of Worldview Everlasting is brought to you by the letter Awesome, the numbers Sweet Action, and Issues Etc. Talk radio for the thinking Christian. IssuesETC.org.
And on this week's show, we got Mark. Nope, you gotta wait till next week to finally get Mark, and then we'll get some good doses of Mark, I promise, is coming. But this week, the appointed lectionary text is John 1, 43 to 51. Fascinating stuff. Be nice if we went through John in a year. That'd be kind of cool. Never do that, though. Oh well. We'll try to, hat tip to it anyway today. Stick around. All right, so even though in the 3-year lectionary you have a devotion given to each of the 3 synoptic, meaning look-alike gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, the Gospel of Mark's a little bit shorter and a little tougher to stretch out,
butter scraped over too much bread.
One book spread across 3 movies,
where tiny sections of the book will be stretched into hours of overly CG'd filler.
And so what they do is they insert little bits of John, the way you might insert juice into a turkey to make it taste good.
Sacrilegious.
Only the thing is, just Mark and John are so different that it doesn't really work that well if you're looking for any kind of thematic preaching. Even so, nonetheless, you do have, in today's text from John chapter 1, verses 43 to 51, a pretty important setup for everything that John is doing. The book of John itself is very intentionally crafted, maybe even more so than the other 3 synoptics, although I wouldn't want to say that entirely. They're all set up intentionally, but John is just, I don't know, he's on a different plane, right? He's on a different level.
These go to 11.
And so he has this really clear structure where he's got a prologue and an epilogue where he's setting up themes and resolving ideas, and all the way through there are these parallel characters that are bouncing off of each other through the infusing of light and darkness and light and darkness and water and blood and water and blood and all the way to the glory of the cross. I mean, it's a marvelous, marvelous gospel. In that, that's the obvious stuff that's right there. There's also these buried majesty things going on, at the heart of which is the question of faith and who gives faith and how faith comes and what faith does. The question, do you believe in John's gospel, is a very important one. And then not just do you believe, but how do you believe? Do you believe because of the signs and the wonders that are given to you? Or do you believe because Jesus has in fact elected, called you, chosen you by name, and made you his? And it's the latter if you don't know it from your doctrine. But where do we get that doctrine? Well, nowhere else but the scriptures. And that is what John is really emphasizing. And it's, again, beneath the surface, and yet there's moments of really coming out, you did not choose me, I chose you, stuff like that. But it's here today in this text that normally you don't really see. Most people preach this text as sort of oh look, one of the disciples went and told another disciple about Jesus, so you better do that too, or you're not a real Christian. Feel guilty and go do mission work and give money on the way out. Do it.
Bow to your sensei! Bow to your sensei!
But I'm a happy pastor, right? And then we try to fuse that together, and it's just we wonder why our pews are empty. What's really going on here is that the disciples are finding Jesus, or I shouldn't say that, but that's just it. The disciples are finding Jesus, but he's finding them. And the question is, who found who, and who believes in who, and why do you believe? Why do they think he is who they're saying that he is? And Jesus challenging them to say, you guys don't really know who I am yet, and you're not gonna know until after I have risen from the dead. More so, until my word has been sent with the Holy Spirit to call, gather, enlighten, and elect you to faith in the power not of my resurrection, but of my cross, where my glory is really revealed. The text today doesn't do all of this, it sets it up. Yeah, it's like the kernel burying these nuggets for you to find later. But it does parallel then with John chapter 20 and the do you believe Thomas stuff that goes on there as well. Try to pull some of that out as we go.
Something.
You also have this really interesting first day, second day, third day thing going on early in John's gospel, where the third day is the wedding feast at Cana. And so the beginning of our text today, on the next day, is the second day in this string of things. And we're not going to pull that out too much, but why does he say on the next day at the start of our text? It has to do with this whole moving toward third day stuff, foreshadowing, hinting at, something's going to happen on a third day somewhere that's pretty dang important. So the next day after the first day, which was the day also that I believe John the Baptist says, Jesus is the Lamb of God, takes away the sins of the world. After this, Jesus decides to go to Galilee, which is a little ways away from where John was baptizing at the Jordan. And he found Philip. And notice, there's the action. He found Philip. He goes, he chooses, he picks Philip and said to Philip, come after me, follow me, accompany me. Now, we shouldn't raise too much in this as in it's like decision theology, make a decision for me, right? It's not like, hey, you, this way. It's a call. It's a gathering. It is, in fact, an enlightening. You come. I pull you with my words. Let there be light. There's light. Come with me. He does. And then we're told that Philip was from Bethsaida, which is also the town, the city, the place, the home of Peter and Andrew. Peter and Andrew were mentioned in the previous text about the day before. Well, Philip then goes and he finds a guy named Nathanael. And he says to Nathanael, we found the Christ. And here's the thing. Who's finding who? Now, this is not like laid bare. John's telling us this. This is just undercurrents in the text. But Jesus found Philip, and Philip says to Nathanael, we found Jesus. But nonetheless, it's a pretty cool confession. Hey, buddy, Nathanael, we found the Christ, the one of whom Moses and all the prophets are talking about. And you're never gonna get this. His name is Jesus, and he's from Nazareth. It's pretty sweet. And Nathanael, now what can we say about this guy? Is he a skeptic? Is he just an honest critic? Is he truly an Israelite in whom there is no deceit? Or is he an Israelite in whom there is a whole lot of deceit? It's kind of hard to tell because, well, there's two ways of reading the things that are said by him and about him. And the question is, how much satire is John, the gospel writer, actually using at this point? I tend to lean on that he's using a lot of satire end of things. So what we see here is Nathanael being something of a punk, actually. He's got a mixed up confession. He's out there, preaching his altar call. We found Jesus, make a decision. But nonetheless, he's still saying, look, it's really the right guy. We got this guy. It's Jesus. He's from Nazareth. It's great. And Nathanael's all rejecting this. Yeah, he's like, from Nazareth? What good can come from Nazareth? Which may have been a saying, a colloquialism of the time. And in fact, it is likely that not a lot of good did come out of the backwoods town of Nazareth. But even so, you trust your friend, right? He's telling you he found God. Maybe listen a little bit. So I don't think this is painting Nathanael in a really great light by John at this point. But you have a nice response from Philip. He says, come and see for yourself. Come talk to this guy. You aren't going to believe what he's able to say. Now, as Jesus sees Nathanael coming toward him, he says out loud, and is this to the crowd around him? Probably. And here's the thing. Is he being sarcastic?
Do I detect a note of sarcasm?
Or is he being really honest? Is it I finally found an actual righteous Israelite with not a hint of darkness or deceit in him, and now, thank goodness, a man righteous by his own works, whom I am capable of loving and lauding and saving? Or is he doing the opposite of this and mocking Nathanael as Nathanael comes up? Oh, behold, a true Israelite in whom there clearly is no deception whatsoever.
Are you kidding me? This baby is off the charts.
He wouldn't even say it like that either. Jesus is way cooler than I am. He'd deliver it with far more, innuendo and actual class. He's not being hateful at this point. Satire is not always hate. He has more actually love for him, trying to wake him up, smack him around a little bit. Hey, buddy, wake up. Hey, everybody, check it out. Here is somebody who's so honest and so pure that we can all see he clearly will know the Messiah when the Messiah shows up.
Oh, a sarcasm detector. Well, that's a really useful invention.
And then Nathanael says to him, the ESV translates it, how do you know me? Which implies that Nathanael's yes, of course I am. I'm not sure that's in the text either. I think Nathanael's just more surprised and or concerned. Behold, this guy is so righteous. And Nathanael's do I know you? Have we met? That's the implication of the Greek. It's not he's saying, yes, of course I am. That's not there. But then now Jesus' response is really interesting. Before Philip called you, right? You didn't call him. He called you. He gathered you. He elected you to me. I saw you under the fig tree. I saw what you were doing there. Now, is this just he's hanging out under a fig tree? Or is this I know your sin, Nathanael. I know what you were doing. You thought that nobody saw you, but I'm God, and I did. That's kind of what I think's happening there. Yeah, now maybe it's just he was under a tree, right? But nonetheless, it's more implication. There's more going on here, right? Behold, somebody who's so righteous. Do I know you? Yeah, well, I saw you when you were doing that not so righteous thing I'm not going to talk about in front of all your friends. And And Nathanael's response kind of makes sense at that point. He's like, oh, behold, Rabbi, teacher, you must be the Son of God, because like clearly, nobody saw me, and you did. You are the King of Israel. I'll do whatever you want. I'm yours. Yeah, save me. And now Jesus is like to the crowds, right, to the people around him. Whoa. I said I saw you under a fig tree, and you think I'm God? No, you're right, I am. But really, I saw you under a fig tree doing sin, and that's what makes you believe? No. You don't believe yet, buddy. You've called me the Son of God. You got no idea what the Son of God means. I'm gonna tell you, you're gonna see much greater things than this. And then there's like left a moment of space, right? It's not actually like there's holes in the text, but you're gonna see greater things than this. And what's the implication? And the rest of the gospel is gonna fill this in. The implication is you're gonna see all sorts of great things, and you're still not gonna believe I'm the Son of God. Because seeing is not believing in the Gospel of John. Hearing is believing, and you don't hear until you hear about the cross. And no one knows about the cross yet at this point. So you're gonna see much greater things than this, and you're still not gonna understand who I am. And behold, you're gonna even see this. Heaven itself opened up. And remember, the whole baptism of the Jordan's already happened. That's not what he's talking about. You're gonna see heaven opened up and the messengers of God going down and coming up around and upon and gravitating toward, from, entirely needing connection to the Son of Man, which is the first time that the word Son of Man, the phrase Son of Man, is used in the Gospel of John, which is a really unique thing, a sort of an intertestamental thing that Jesus is taking for his own. The Son of Man is a claim, in fact, to messiahship and kinghood, but he's saying that heaven is going to open and the messengers of God are going to be united eternally to this Son of Man. What's he talking about? I'm pretty confident it's the cross, right? Normally we want to think this is maybe like him in the Garden of Gethsemane praying and the angels show up. Well, sure, Philip's going to see that too, but everything here is about that question, do you believe? And when will you believe? When the messengers of God point you to the cross of Jesus. Well, this is about the angels then, like talking about the empty tomb? Well, no, there's no mention of that in John, right? They just find an empty tomb, but there's no angels there. Now we know, of course, there were angels there, but John doesn't mention it. Why? Because the messengers he's talking about, the sending he's talking about, the receiving of the Holy Spirit he's talking about is that giving of the keys of forgiveness, which is going to happen to the apostles themselves after the resurrection, where they're sent to the world to loose people by the power of the atonement of Jesus' cross. All of that is just being laid a foundation for here. Most of what I've said isn't actually in the text. The story's in the text, but you know, the theology is like from the end of the book, right? And what I'm trying to show you is how it's going to lead us there. Yeah, how it's laying the foundation for it. These aren't just thrown around terms. When it's talking about finding, and do you pistuo, do you believe, this is key stuff for the rest of John's gospel. Just as his using of light and darkness, his using of characters to represent huge groups of people, and his using of blood and water to, of course, talk about those mysterious gifts we call the sacraments. Anyway, there's your dose of John out of the blue for this week, and no more next week. We're in Mark after this, finally, for quite a while, for at least 6 weeks before we're back to John and Lent. We'll get some John then, yeah? Anyway, if you like what we do here at Worldview Everlasting, preparing you to go to church with the gospel you plan to hear, with the actual gospel from that text, feeding you your faith during the week, then make sure you consider supporting us, Lutheran Ninja Clan. You can join it. $5 a month goes a long way toward making all that we do here possible and getting this stuff as far out as possible into the interwebs. Until next time, you can like the show, you can subscribe, you can share, and you can make sure that even though the Christmas tree is down, you can keep on rocking on.
I am fire. I am death.
Black Arrow!
Ooh, right in the... Oh dear.